I've been working my way through the book of Ecclesiastes, looking at the basic development in like a commentary way in the book. We now are in chapter 4, dealing with oppressions that are done under the sun. We've looked at chapters 1 and 2 and 3, where we've looked at different things that he tries, like human wisdom in chapter 1, like pleasure in chapter 2. For example, in chapter 3, showing that there's a time for everything under the sun. What I want to do now is look at chapter 4. Chapter 4, 1 to 3, deals with oppressions under the sun. It reads, "So I returned, and I considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. And behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. And on the side of the oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. Wherefore I praise the dead, which are already dead, more than the living that are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they, which has not yet been, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun." Notice, he said, I returned, and I began to consider all the oppressions which are done under the sun. He is looking here at the extortion of the powerful in this world often apply to the weak. Notice, and I saw the tears of those that were oppressed, but they did not seem to have a comforter. From the hand of the oppressor there is power, but from the hand of the oppressed, he repeats, there was no comforter for them. Those who are powerful often oppress the weak, and at times he looks around and sees that there does not seem to be help for those who are oppressed in the midst of oppression. So he said, I praise the dead that are already dead more than the living that have not yet been alive. In other words, those who have died are better than those who are alive because they have not experienced or observed or experienced in their own lives the oppression of the poor. Or let's say if they did, let me put it this way, they are not experiencing it anymore. But better than both of them is he that has not yet been, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Better than both the living and those who have died, the Kohelet says, are those who have not yet been born, because at least they do not see the evil and the oppression that has gone on. That would be better than one who has even seen it and died. By the way, I do not think that the Kohelet is saying that death is better than life, because later he will say someone living is better than a dead lion, no matter how powerful the lion might be. He is concerned mostly about dealing with the oppression in this world of the weak and is addressing that issue. And so he's not speaking, when we look at the whole book, at the that those that die are better off. He denies that later on in the book. In other words, when he talks about the lion that has died, better is one who is living than a dead lion. So the point is, it's best to, the whole point is, he really is saying the oppressions in this world are often very, very sad and hard to deal with in what happens to people. He then moves on to talk about the balance between work and rest. Again, he said, I considered all travail and every right work that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool, though, folds his hands together and eats his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than both hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. So what the Kohelet is going to talk about now is the whole idea of balance in life. Notice in the next observation, then, he looks at the evil of jealousy as we read this text. I considered all the hard toil and every excelling work. The word in the Hebrew, kisharon, is looking at work that is done with skill, every skillful and excelling work. This often is a work of jealousy against one's neighbor, because often individuals work hard to be better than someone else. Indeed, this is vanity and a chasing after the wind, he says. One of the things that I think we learn as a child, as we begin to grow up, is that all the competition and often sports, while they are a great thing, sometimes it can be like life and death to win, even when we were young. Coaches and parents can become irate at a little league baseball game. This can be true of older people as well. For example, pastors can be competitive with each other, wanting a larger church. Competition has often been a negative driving force in the human race. And Kohelet is saying this is really vanity. He then uses a parable and says the fool folds his hands and eats his flesh. So one option would be to just opt out of everything. Then, though you are like the fool who does not eat because there is no food on the table. In other words, that's not the answer. He is not earned by his work to even feed himself. So just to opt out is not a good thing, he's saying. On the other hand, there are those who are constantly working and are never happy. We're talking about a workaholic going 24/7. He addresses that in contrast. But notice he says, better is a handful then of quietness than both hands full of labor and striving after the wind. In other words, instead of having both hands full and constantly striving, it is better to have one hand full of labor, which makes competition not the issue. You are working to do your best, but you also recognize that there is one hand that needs rest. What a beautiful balance. There is a place for labor. Work is good. Even before the fall, man was to till the garden. However, overwork is not good, especially overwork that is done in a competitive spirit, or we could say overwork at all. It is better to have one handful of rest and one handful of toil in a balance of what is needed, Kohelet is saying. I think we learn from this how in life we need a balance between work and rest. This, by the way, is a very difficult thing to accomplish in our culture because everything is often about productivity and what we are able to accomplish. So what he's really saying here is there needs to be a time of labor, of working to do the best that we can do in what we're called to do, but there also is a time to rest. Jesus said, come apart and rest a while to his disciples. And one of the things that we need to learn is that delicate balance between work and rest. and also not doing things because we're trying to be in competition with someone else. We're only to do our work to the best of our ability to please the Lord. And we can know then that the labor in the Lord is not in vain, Paul tells us. And also, Jesus encourages the need of rest. What a balance, and what a wonderful text that we're looking at here in Ecclesiastes chapter 4.